that awareness without a sovereign anchor still collapses under stress and anxiety and the difficulty that you have in life, right? So I don't think people fail their New Year's resolutions because they lack discipline or they lack willpower. I think they fail because they don't go about the change in a very formulaic or structured way. And I'd like to provide a framework that will really help you if you have already created a New Year's resolution and you really want to make it work, right? So I'm going to do that today. Welcome to the 1000 Days Sober podcast. I am your host, Lee Davey. I am not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone who lives a self-led life, alcohol-free as fuck, and I spend every waking moment of that life, like today, helping other people do the same. Welcome to the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026. But I gotta be honest with you, that kind of stuff doesn't really mean anything to me. My rational, logical mind just sees the calendar year as some concept that we created a gazillion years ago or something. And, when it comes to me, whilst I'll play the game, the cultural game sometimes, and sit and talk about reflecting back on what happened in 2025 and what we could do better in 2026, I do firmly believe that it doesn't matter what day it is. You should just be doing that every day, and it shouldn't be a set thing. It should just be part of your makeup, right? So like if you're living a self-led life, you already know what your goals are. You know what your bucket list is. You know what you want to do. So you've just really got to take action, like making lists and vision boards and all this kind of stuff. For me, it comes secondary to action, right? Which is linked to the type of person you want to be. So just sharing that with you on my insight on what New Year's Eve means to me. It's not a big deal in my life. It's not something that I really celebrate. I kind of celebrate it because certain family members like it. So I kind of do it, but it's kind of fake and it doesn't feel natural to me, if I'm being honest. And as part of, it's ironic though, that I'm actually creating this monologue as part of, there's probably millions of podcasts around the world right now where people are doing the same thing. They are recording an end of year podcast. So it's quite ironic that I said I don't believe in it, but I'm actually doing it. But there is a reason. There is a reason. And that reason is, even though I don't believe in this end of year thing, I know there are billions of people out there that do. And there'll be a lot of people in my audience that do, right? So hopefully this can really help those of you listening to this that are looking to go into 2026 with a different mindset, right? Like a different way of being. Pardon me. And the reason I thought about doing this monologue is I was listening to Sam Harris and his podcast, Making Sense, and he did a little end of year podcast and he was talking about mindfulness, right? He was saying, hey, this is the time of year where people are going to say, I want to set a New Year's resolution to not drink alcohol, not smoke cigarettes, or not watch too much TV, or to put more, to lose weight and to stop eating sugar, all that kind of stuff, right? And what Sam Harris was saying was, the better move here is to forget all that stuff and just focus on mindfulness. And it was the first time that I'd ever heard the term mindfulness and thought to myself, oh, that's what I do every day. The practice of mindfulness is what I do every day. It's part of my self-led life, right? It's like every time my alarms go off and it's asking me, hey, Lee, where are you right now? Are you here? Are you in the past? Are you in the future? That's mindfulness. So mindfulness is self-led life, right? But thinking about and reflect on it a little bit more, mindfulness, it only works if it's serving something deeper for me. I think that awareness without a sovereign anchor, it still collapses under stress and anxiety and the difficulty that you have in life, right? So I don't think people fail their New Year's resolutions because they lack discipline or they lack willpower. I think they fail because they don't go about the change in a very formulaic or structured way. And I'd like to provide a framework that will really help you if you have already created a New Year's resolution and you really want to make it work, right? So I'm going to do that today. So I'm going to talk about something that we use, a framework that's really important in all of my coaching and is one of the fundamental building blocks of the Strive method. And that is called what I'll refer to as a fundamental choice. And I first became aware of this when I was reading the book, The Path of Least Resistance by Robert Fritz, which is a book about creativity and creative blocks, right? Or that's how I perceived it anyway. And it spoke to me at a time when I had become alcohol free as fuck after 20 years of barreling it down my neck every day. And I'd become alcohol free as fuck. And I found it really easy. And I couldn't explain to people how I had done it in a way that had made it feel so easy. And this really spoke to me, right? Like, when you've done something, it's like it was easy for me to stop drinking. And how do I teach somebody else that, right? It was really complicated until I learned about the way that Robert Fritz looks at choices. So what Robert Fritz does when he approaches choices is there's 3 of them. And I'm going to start with the middle of them, the primary choice. So he has secondary choices, primary choices, and fundamental choices, okay? But I'm going to start in the middle of the primary choice because that's where you'll be with your New Year's resolutions. I mean, there will be a lot of New Year's resolutions that they lie at the secondary choice level. And these are things like, oh no, let me go about this a different way. A primary choice, according to Fritz, is a choice that is going to make a really big difference in your life, right? So the one for me that we're talking about today, I made a primary choice to never drink alcohol again in my life. That was a profound decision. That's not like I'm going to choose to eat more celery this year, or I'm going to choose to stop eating carrots, or I'm going to choose to like cut my nails every day. Stopping drinking after drinking for 20 years to the back end of it almost daily, like that is a really big shift in your life. So primary choices are big. They stretch you. They take you outside of your comfort zone and they provide some real value when you nail them. Okay. But how do you nail them? Well, the way that you nail them, you create a lot of secondary choices that support the success of the primary choice. So a secondary choice, if you have made the primary choice to never drink alcohol again in your life, a secondary choice would be to listen to this podcast. I'm going to download the best alcohol-free related content on the planet in podcast form. I'm going to listen to it every day. That is a secondary choice. If you do that choice, then that is going to support the success of the primary choice of never drinking alcohol. Another secondary choice is making the decision to get rid of all alcohol in your house. Another secondary choice could be to stop going to the pub. So you're making secondary choices to support the primary choice. Now, I'm going to tell you this story to help bridge the gap between primary choice and fundamental choice. So 24 years ago, I made the primary choice to never smoke cigarettes ever again. Okay. And the moment I made that primary choice to never smoke cigarettes again, since then, 24 years ago, I've never craved a single cigarette. Yet at the time of making that primary choice, I had unsuccessfully tried to stop smoking like every day. Every day I was trying to stop smoking, I couldn't. And then I made the primary choice to stop smoking. And I haven't craved a cigarette in 24 years. If you've ever promised yourself this year is going to be different and you've still found yourself repeating the same patterns, your problem isn't willpower. It's that no one ever showed you why alcohol has a hold of you in the first place. And so I've created a free Strive workshop that breaks this down clearly. How the liquid lie works, why motivation keeps collapsing, and how to make a change from self instead of force. No hype, no pressure to quit, just absolute clarity. And you can take it now at www.thestrivemethod.com. Okay? All right. back to today's episode. Several years ago, my dad, who has been smoking, my dad's like in his 70s, he's been smoking since he's 14, I think. My dad, a couple of years ago, made the decision to stop smoking. He made the primary choice to stop smoking, right? And he was successful for a period of time, and then he started smoking again. So what is the difference between my dad stopping smoking and then starting again, even though he made the primary choice to stop smoking, and I stopped smoking 24 years ago and I never stopped and I never smoked again or never had a craving? I think the big difference lies in a fundamental choice. So a fundamental choice is very, very different to a primary choice or a secondary choice. A fundamental choice is not about what you'll do more of or what you'll do less of. A fundamental choice is a decision you make about who is in charge of your life. Are you going to set up your life and everything about it so that self is in charge, that self is in the wrestling ring ready to take on all your opponents? Or are you going to set up your life whereby your parts are in control all the time? And by parts, for those of you who don't understand internal family systems, let's talk about, look at parts of like the worst of you, the inner children in you, the childishness, like the anger, the resentment, anywhere where you're being reactive, not proactive, right? And self is the opposite. The self is where you're at your best, when you're more grounded, when you're conscious, when you have access to your calm state, curiosity, your creativity, your compassion, and all that kind of stuff, right? It's like, completely different. So if you make a fundamental choice that self is going to take charge, then you're going to make some really great changes in your life. And I did that, right? I made the fundamental choice, even though I didn't have this language 24 years ago. I made the fundamental choice 24 years ago to live a life of self-development, to continually grow and develop, and to try to become a better man. That was like literally what I did back then when I decided to stop smoking, right? And that allowed me in that moment. Actually, that's not true. The fundamental choice back then was around health. It was around health. I made a fundamental choice that I was going to be healthier, and cigarettes were just not allowed to be in that kind of party, right? So I wanted to change my life. I didn't just want to stop smoking. My dad just wanted to stop smoking. He didn't want to change his life. So think about it. If you make the fundamental choice to live a more self-led life, be more conscious, if you make a fundamental choice to be the healthiest person you can be, if you make these kind of like really big, basic life orientation changes in terms of the fundamental choice, then imagine how different your secondary choices become to support your primary choice. So if my dad doesn't want to change his life, yet he wants to make the primary choice of smoking cigarettes, it's going to be really difficult for him to create really good, solid secondary choices that are going to support the primary choice. So the reason I'm saying this is when it comes to all of your New Year's resolutions, whether it is you want to exercise more, whether you want to stop eating sugar, whether you want to stop drinking alcohol, you want to stop smoking weed or stop smoking cigarettes, you want to spend more time with your kids, you want to have more sex with your partner because that's not something you do. All of those decisions that you make now and you write your list about the things that you're going to do, that's what I call content. Okay. And I want you to be a leader who comes from context. So context versus content. If you think about a conversation, context is how you're going to show up and have that conversation. And the content is what you talk about. Right. So apply this to the fundamental choice. If you want to stop drinking, if you want to stop smoking, if you want to exercise more, if you want to eat healthier, how are you going to do that? How are you going to show up and do that consistently? What kind of energy do you want to be in when you make those decisions? Like, who do you need to be in order for these primary choices and secondary choices to mature into an end result that you're happy with and that you want to go for? And a big part of this making a fundamental choice and choosing the context of living, for me, my fundamental choice is I choose to live a self-led life, alcohol-free as fuck, right? So for me, if I show up with a conversation with my arch enemy, and I show up in a conversation with my wife or my daughter, I want to come at that conversation with the same energy, with the same self energy. That is a context that I want to lead in my life. So if I show it with my enemy from a place of compassion, love, it doesn't really matter what I'm talking about, because my choice, my choosing context over content means that if I come there with compassion, if I come there with curiosity, actually the content will take care of itself, right? It will take care of itself. If things go tits up in a conflict situation with somebody I really struggle with, yet I can hold that anchor of self energy, then I'm not going to be destabilized. I'm not going to be dysregulated, right? So for me, living a self-led life is all about self-regulation. It's all about having more and more control and widening the window of tolerance of what you can handle in life, so you don't dip below the line into parts energy and let the parts come into the wrestling ring. So now you're just fighting through life, right? And the sovereign vow, which is something we teach in the Strive method, the sovereign vow is the behavioral expression of the fundamental choice, right? It's not a goal. It's not motivation. It's an identity. It's a declaration of identity that removes negotiation. Think of like being at a wedding and saying your vows to your partner, like that you're not going to sleep with other people, that you're going to whatever. Like that's the one that comes to me all the time. It's like you go get married and you say, I am going to be monogamous. I am just giving my heart to you. I'm just not going to play any funny games anymore. And you put that ring on your finger. That is something that is really important to you, right? That is something that is important. You've now declared yourself that you have a new identity. You are a husband, and you are a husband, and this is your wife, or you're a wife and this is your husband. Ergo, if you've gone down the cultural norm, the stereotypical norm of having a monogamous relationship, that's your new identity. And it's really serious and it's really important. And when you break it, you do everything you can in your power not to break it. When you do break it, there's disastrous consequences. You feel shame, you feel guilt, etc., because the vow means something to you. So for me, I made the sovereign vow. I have never, like, to me, choosing to not drink alcohol, be alcohol free as fuck, and making that sovereign vow tied within the fundamental choice of living a life alcohol free as fuck, self-led, means that I never craved alcohol. And that's why it was easy for me to quit. Same with cigarettes, right? It's like I made the sovereign vow. I am never smoking cigarettes again because I have a baby on the way. And I do not want my son to smoke cigarettes. So I can't be a hypocrite here. Secondly, I don't want cigarette smoke anywhere near this kid because it is dangerous and it can really harm him, right? I can't hold him while I'm smelling of cigarettes. Okay. And thirdly, I want to live as long as I can to see my son grow old and prosper and have kids of his own and be a grandparent. And I need to be as healthy as I can. So now I have to stop smoking. So the sovereign vow for me was really important 24 years ago. Similarly, 17 years ago, taking a sovereign vow to not drink alcohol anymore, really, really important to me that you tie that sovereign vow into the fundamental choice, right? So once the fundamental choice is made, primary choices organize themselves naturally, and secondary choices stop feeling like willpower, right? You're not battling anymore. Like for me, my choices when I'm on the top of my game are made from the fundamental choice of living a self-led life, of choosing the context of living a self-led life. And so when I make decisions like I'm not going to watch pornography, and then, social media becomes pornography. I'm not going to use social media for pornography, right? I'm not going to drink alcohol. I'm not going to eat sugar. I'm not going to eat fast food, right? So all those decisions, they come from making a fundamental choice. Okay. Lastly, I hope by explaining this, you can see that waiting for January becomes irrelevant, right? Any day you choose self over your conditioning, that's a real beginning. Calendars don't change lives, right? Calendars don't change lives. Your commitments change lives, right? So the real invitation at the year end isn't what do I want to improve, but am I willing to stop outsourcing the authority over my life to people outside of me and to the parts that live in the inner child world and kingdom within me, right? Are you ready to step up to the plate, take the sovereign vow and say, I am the authority here. I am the authority and the expression of love and strength and power and compassion and humility and all that good stuff. That everything that I need to be a success in life, including being alcohol free as fuck, is already inside me. I just have to make the sovereign vow and the fundamental choice to live life very differently than I've been living it, because the results I've been getting it since I've been living it this way have not been good enough for me, right? Have not been good enough for me. So if you are thinking about doing New Year's resolutions, or you've already done New Year's resolutions, ask yourself, are those resolutions secondary choices, primary choices, or fundamental choice? And if you can pinpoint them into the secondary choice and a primary choice, ask yourself, what is the fundamental choice I need to make in order to give myself the best opportunity that these primary choices and secondary choices will bear fruit and I will be a success. I'll hit my success criteria, because my experience tells me that if you don't make the fundamental choice to support, to like provide yourself with the container to which to grow your primary choice, your secondary choice, you just are going to be booming around on willpower, right? You're going to have parts of your psyche that don't want that change to happen. They will create resistance, right? And you'll really, really struggle, and you'll find it like a terrible process, and you'll likely give up. But if you make a decision from fundamental choice, which isn't a decision at all, it's just your natural way of being. It's not natural to drink alcohol, guys. It's not natural to smoke cigarettes. Like, you are poisoning your body. Like that's not natural. It's not a cool thing to do. And your body, your system knows that if you just get out the way, right? You just get out the way. Okay. So if you have any questions whatsoever on the fundamental choice, you want to learn more about it, just email me at thestrivemethod@gmail.com, right? And I'm not going to say have a great 2026. Just have a great day today. Right? Have a great day today. Have a great moment by moment existence. Okay. And just know that everything you need to be alcohol free as fuck and live a self-led life is inside of you. Right? And you're doing the right thing. Listening to me today is probably a secondary choice which supports a primary choice. All I want you to do now is get bigger than that, bolder than that, and create a fundamental choice. Much love, and strive on.